water?
No, you're right. Do you need any water? No. Guys, what can I call you?
Erinma.
Erinma.
Yeah.
Erinma. Okay. Professor Erinma Bell. You are the first woman in 150 years to have a sculpture in Manchester.
Absolutely.
How do you...
A black woman, an African woman.
I have a picture video statue.
So the question we put to the government is, how does a weapon from the Bosnia War get through all the borders and reach inner city UK, Manchester, and in the hands of a 14-year-old?
Professor Erinma Bell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Professor Erinma Bell. What I've read is in 2002, Erinma and her husband Raymond witnessed a close friend being gunned down in front of them.
Yes.
Shocked by what they saw, they set up Charisma, which is Community Alliance for Renewal in the South Manchester area.
That's correct.
Would you just take us through, please?
Okay, well, Charisma, as you see,
yes.
And it is an acronym, it was set up as a community response to the gun and gang crime, which was quite prevalent in the late 90s, early noughties. We didn't set up with the aim of we're going to combat crime and we're going to do this. We were actually doing the work already, and it was 3 or 4 years later in doing that work that somebody then offered us some money towards our charitable work. But that's when we realized that we didn't have a name and we didn't have a bank account, so we then formalized ourselves. And yes, around the same time or just before we formalized, a friend of ours was shot tragically, but he didn't die, thank goodness. He was shot, and that spurred us even more to want to make a difference within our community, because gun crime became a reality to us, because otherwise gun crime was not a reality in our lives. We are, like me, I'm from a family of academics. My husband is from a family of hard-working, working class people. Gun crime wasn't a reality to us, but that night it became a reality. And unfortunately, we were never treated as victims, we were treated as perpetrators. And so that's where we, even personally, we said, no, enough is enough, and, things have to change.
Fantastic. You are the first woman in 150 years to have a sculpture in Manchester.
Absolutely.
How do you think it reflects the city's progress in community cohesion?
I think I've always said my statue actually creates a new paradigm in history. One, I'm the first female in 150 years to have a statue of herself unveiled in Manchester Town Hall. Two, I am a black woman, an African woman. And if you see the statue, I am wearing my African gele.
I have a picture video statue. I'm going to show you after the interview.
Yes. So I'm a visible African woman. And three, I am still alive. The statue has not been made like 150 years after I've passed on, and people would say, who? At least I'm still alive, and I have taken selfies with my own statue.
Yes.
So it does create a new paradigm in history. And I think it's really good for community cohesion across Manchester. It's good for women across Manchester, and it's really excellent for actually black African women, in Manchester.
Would you tell us what that made of?
It's actually made of 50 recycled guns as a tribute to my work in reducing gun crime across Manchester by 92%. So it's a tribute to my work on gun crime, because it is made of gunmetal.
What impact do you hope your statue has on young people and the wider community?
Well, I think the impact that the statue will have on young people is the fact that it's a living legacy. It's a legacy that will always be there. And the impact on younger people, and in particular young women, is the fact that, if you want to see change, you have to be part of that change. And you can make change within your community, within your neighborhood. That's the impact it will have. I mean, when young people hear about it, when I talk to them about it, and I have, a banner that I pull up, or I put slides up, they're absolutely fascinated with the fact that this person in front of them has a statue, because of the change that I've brought about across the city, that they too can do that change.
Yes. Manchester has seen significant progress in tackling gun crime. What do you think has been the key to this success?
I think the key to the success of tackling gun crime is that community cohesion. Basically, in Manchester, people coming together to solve crime, to solve an issue, to solve community issues. It's that coming together, that togetherness that we have. We boast that Manchester is a multicultural city, which it is. And within that multiculturalness, if we do have issues, people come together. It's not about race, it's not about color, it's not about religion. It's about the fact that we want to live together in harmony, and my neighbor is my brother or my sister. It doesn't matter where they're from. If we have an issue to solve, we are all going to come together to solve that issue, because that issue affects everybody. And that's one of the things that Charisma, when we set up Charisma, that's one of the things we were saying to people, which is don't wait for gun crime to reach your doorstep before you decide to do something about it. Don't wait for gun crime to, affect your young person or your young people before you decide to do something about it. Let's all work together and do that preventative work. And I think that's what's good about Manchester. We do come together when there's a crisis. People come together.
Very good, and that's because of your such a. I'm not saying woman, such a human like you.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, one of the things that I've always advocated is that through Charisma, we have built social capital across the city, and we're still doing that, and actually informing people what social capital is, and it comes in three forms. Four. I added a fourth: bonding, bridging, linking, and identity. Bonding social capital, basically bonding with people, gravitating towards people that look like you, sound like you, maybe eat the same foods. And when I say sound like you, I mean, our colloquial languages. So I'm Nigerian. I describe myself as a Nigerian born in Britain, and we're from the Igbo tribe. If I hear Igbo being spoken, I don't even need to know who they are, but I will look and I will think, they are my people. And more than likely, I will approach them and I will greet them in my language. And that's what people do naturally. If you hear your language being spoken, you will turn to see, oh, who are these people? Or if people are dressed like you in your cultural attire or eating your foods, we do that naturally. And it's a good thing. And people shouldn't be afraid if they are not part of that group, because that's when the phobias set in. If they're not part of that group, like if Muslim women are gathered together, those of us that probably are not Muslim women, or we don't wear the hijab, we think, why are they all together? They are together because they found something in common, and it's natural. You have the bridging social capital, where we did a lot of this through Charisma, making sure, introducing people or creating the awareness that it's okay to step outside of your comfort zone. Step outside of your comfort zone and get to know another community. Go to a mosque if you've never been to one. Go to a temple if you've never been to one. Do these things to get to know other communities, to get to know people that are different from yourselves. I mean, we've just had Ramadan and Eid. Many of us were invited to Eid celebrations. Many people opened up their homes and their community centers for those who've never been to an Eid. If you've never been to Iftar, you can now come to our Iftar, understand what it is, and know that we are all normal. We're all people, we're all humans. And so bridging is about stepping outside of your comfort zone into another community to try and understand what they're all about. And when I say other communities, it could also be the LGBT community. Maybe we don't really know what they're about. Step into that community to ask questions. Well, what does LGBTQIA, what does it stand for even? Because some people don't even know what it stands for. You could even begin there. Because that's the time, I think, when we're able to ask questions of people that are different from ourselves, and true, honest questions because we want to know, that's when we get real, true, honest respect for differences. Because we can easily say, oh, we are going to respect all our differences, but how do we practically do that?
So I think your message to the people is, instead of ignoring each other, instead of avoiding each other, let's get close to each other.
Absolutely.
Let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
And that's the way we can live together peacefully.
Absolutely. And even, a lot of my work is around peace and conflict resolution. That's what I have my PhDs for and my professorship. And the thing with conflict just is. We will always have conflict. Even it's part of our human nature. For some reason, we're even fascinated with conflict. So because we know conflict just is, and we will always have conflict, what we have to learn to do is learn how to manage that conflict. And that's the bit that usually people forget or miss out. Learn how to prevent the conflict in the first place, because that's the only way we're all going to we've put it this way: we have coexisted for 999 years, if not more, and we will continue to coexist. There will continue to be conflict, and we just have to learn how to manage that conflict.
How would you describe the state of youth crime in Manchester today compared to when you started your work? Because I know you were challenging once you started. You see, I've heard in Manchester 35 years ago, it was sometime even you couldn't pass the street.
Well, even on that, the thing is, in the media, they had a lot to be blamed for about that perception about Moss Side. The way the media would report on Moss Side, yes, you would think you weren't allowed to walk on the streets of Moss Side, and in particular after a certain time, anybody would think there was a curfew in Moss Side. Anybody would, there was one paper that did compare Moss Side to Beirut. And the thing is, if you lived in Moss Side, like me, I'm born and brought up in Moss Side, it was never like that. Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
Oh, it's my son. Let me just see. Robert. See you. Yeah, quickly. I'm in the middle of an interview. Yeah, this evening. You're bringing him though? Yeah. No, can't pick him up. But yeah. All right. Okay, and I'll call you when I finish. All right. What? My son. So that it just reminds me. Let me now put it on silent, because they'll all ring me.
That's you?
Yes, that's me.
Video sculpture.
Yes. So where were we? The thing is, media were to blame a lot, because we even challenged the media about the way they would report, the shootings across the UK. Because even if there was a shooting in Birmingham, Moss Side, we got the blame. If there was a shooting in Heald Green, Moss Side, we got the blame. So it's not all young people were to blame. Yes, there were young people that were settling their scores with a deadly weapon. However, we were asking the wrong question and looking in the wrong direction. It took us 6 years to bring gun crime, first of all, to the top of the government's agenda. There was a time when a young boy, 14 years old, was arrested on the streets of Moss Side, and he had a Kalashnikov weapon. Forensics was done on that weapon, and that weapon had been used in the Bosnia War. Wow. So the question we put to the government is, how does a weapon from the Bosnia War get through all the borders and reach inner city UK, Manchester, and in the hands of a 14-year-old? It wasn't being done by a 14-year-old. That 14-year-old didn't even know where Piccadilly train station was.
Yes.
So again, we were blaming, or I should say the society was blaming young people. Oh, it's young people. Young people are not the ones that were smuggling guns into the UK. Because remember, this is a country where guns are illegal.
Yes.
So how does that weapon get from Bosnia to the 14-year-old? He's not putting in an order, because I'm sure a 14-year-old is not ordering, yes, I want a Kalashnikov and I'd like this. And, it's not Walmart. No. So we were saying to the government, local and central government, that, we're using young men, young people, especially young black boys, as scapegoats, because they're not the ones smuggling these weapons in. You have to go to the source, go upstream and find out where these guns are coming from. So I don't like to talk about, how young people were on the streets with guns and you were able to walk the streets, because of Moss Side, because it was never like that. It was never like that. Young people were not the ones bringing in guns. You could always walk the streets of Moss Side. It was the media, and central government. They were prepared to demonize a whole community so that they didn't really have to look into where the guns were coming from, because this is a country, guns are illegal. So common sense would even say to you, Yeah, it's true. How do these guns get into the country? And that's the question that's what we tackled.
Are you still facing with this question?
No, because obviously what happened was they cut off the supply, because that's what we said. It's the simple supply and demand. You cut off the supply, the demand goes down, and hence, because they cut off the supply by checking the borders and the ports properly, the demand went down, and hence why gun crime reduced by 92%, because you cannot now readily get hold of weapons that are illegal. You can't get hold of them.
Last question. What more needs to be done to strengthen community cohesion and ensure lasting change?
What more needs to be done to strengthen community cohesion? I think what needs to be done is we all need to carry on doing what it is that we are actually doing around community cohesion. I mean, Manchester in particular, does a lot. We have, we celebrate people's festivals. We celebrate religious festivals. We celebrate community festivals. We do a lot to actually bring different people together, and we need to continue doing that. We celebrate Black history. We celebrate anybody else's history, and we need to continue doing that, because if we don't, it's like the crime, the gun crime, or the street violence, or the racism, which is real abuse cultivated in small minds. That racism, it's like a cancer, so you can cure cancer in one area, but if you don't continue doing the chemo, it then pops up somewhere else. So with community cohesion, we have to continue doing what we're doing, because we're doing it well, and we have to continue doing it. We have to continue welcoming people into our communities and making them feel welcome. We have to continue working with them. We have to continue, celebrating the differences that we have, and be proud of the differences that we have in Manchester. And that's how we will continue building and creating community cohesion and making it stronger.
On behalf of Manchester, I really appreciate your efforts towards the peace.
Thank you.
And such a pleasure talking to you.
And you.
Professor Erinma Bell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.